Welcome to the third podcast of Simnation's SNCFL Football League. Just a reminder, this is a Wolverine Studios Draft Day Sports College Football 2021 title. And today we're going to kind of catch you up on where we are in the season. Essentially, 3 sim weeks have happened since the last time that we did a podcast, so quite a bit of change within the rankings and so forth. So, just want to remind everyone that podcasts typically will be on Saturday at 9 p.m. I will be a little late sometimes here or there, like tonight, but we'll try to hold that schedule as best as we can. Um, so, without further ado, I'll just kind of dive right in. So the last time we talked kind of was before the season had begun. I think maybe we had, well, actually it was about week 2. So we had 2 games into the season. We're now 5 games into the season. And things are still pretty unclear as to which teams are headed where, but we have seen some trends start to emerge, and there's already been some major upsets that have happened, as well as some games that some teams would like to forget that happened. So probably what I'll do is I'll start with the top 25 and kind of talk about how that is looking so far. Because I think that that is probably the biggest thing right now. So if we, sorry, take a second for it to switch over. So what we'll do is we'll start with the top 25 first. So, last time we talked, I think Alabama was number one. They're still number one. They're 5-0. We'll talk a little bit about. Um, Actually, we'll just go into that right now. So, this is Max's team. Max has had a pretty solid season. Of course, I think the last time we talked, they had just beaten Wisconsin 61-0. Since then, they went on to kind of beat a couple really good teams. Maybe not as good as USC was, but they're averaging probably right around somewhere around 40 points a game. They're only giving up roughly about maybe 3 touchdowns a game, so they're doing pretty good. And as you can see here, is they have the 7th best defense in the league. The offense maybe not as good as they would like. Um, if I remember correctly, they have a couple injuries, and that's kind of holding them back a little bit. But they are 5-0. Of course, uh, next week they take on Texas A&M. Texas A&M was toasty. Now it's James. James just took them over tonight, and then they'll get an open week, and then they'll play Arkansas, which should be when we do the next sim or do the next podcast. Sorry. So. They've already got one commit, Timothy Hickson, the center out of Denham Springs, Louisiana. He's a 5-star, so Max is definitely starting early yet again. It may be hard to keep pace with him and kind of keep him out of the top 5 from a recruiting perspective. Number 2 is Maryland. Maryland started the season as preseason number 1. They've won all their games, and they've won many of them convincingly. They don't have a great quality win yet. They, of course, last time we had talked, had just barely beaten USC. They went on to beat Wake Forest, Penn State, and Illinois. Roughly, the last 2 games they've beaten their opponent by 24 or more points, so that's pretty good. As you can see, is again just kind of like where Max is. Their production's kind of down. They got the 2nd best rushing defense, 6th best total defense. But I mean, they're cruising kind of. Of course, nobody's committed. It's not a big concern yet. In another week or 2, that might be a concern. I don't think they're losing anybody to anybody else. They did lose the center to Max at Alabama, Number 3 is Clemson. This is Matt's team. Clemson is doing pretty good. They have a top 10 rushing defense. I'm rushing offense, sorry. They're the third best scoring defense and fifth best rushing defense. As you can see, they already have 2 commits, 2 3-stars, one out of Ridgeview High and one out of Westside High. Both of those are from South Carolina. They just beat number 24 Miami. That's a pretty good win, especially since it's in the ACC. The week before, they beat Van at NC State. So they're cruising pretty right now through the Atlantic coast. So if you look, Esteban Johnson is doing okay. That's not a great passing thing, but Billy Andrade is having a pretty good season. That's over 100 yards per game. So I gotta imagine Matt's kind of happy with the way Clemson's playing right now. Texas A&M, as I mentioned, started the year with Toasty. He got them to essentially 5-0. James is taking over. Probably not the best time to take over, as his first game as the coach of Texas A&M will be against Max, who's the number 1 team at Alabama. And then, of course, they got Louisiana State, and then Matt with his number 6 Auburn Tigers before we do the next podcast. They have the the 6th best scoring offense, the best total offense, 4th best passing attack, and then 13th best rushing defense. No big injuries. As you can see, Ignacio Lott, we'll talk about him in a little bit. He's having a really good year. Jason Taylor's averaging over 100 yards a game. No big commits so far. So that's something I think that we'll kind of keep an eye on to see if they get one in the next week or two. And then as we keep going through it, I'm going to skip over number 5, Louisville. They're also out of the ACC. Right now, they're looking like they're going to be the primary contender with Clemson for the ACC championship game. We move over to number 6, Auburn. That is, of course, Matt's second team. Probably the first team in his heart. Kind of an upset with South Carolina. That's a very big scoring game. Lost 71-65. We'll probably take a quick look at that. Matt may not like me for that, but it's got to be like and it is. It's a bunch of overtime games. So 1, 2, 3, 4 overtimes before South Carolina completes the upset. Nothing stands out other than the passing attack. That's pretty amazing. 9 touchdowns from South Carolina's quarterback Alfonso Monkey. But that's a pretty big upset. That drops him to 4-1. Probably the reason why he dropped to number 6. But as you can see, as George Mosley is the leading rusher right now. They're 4-1. I don't think that they need to worry necessarily. Traditionally in the SEC, you can drop one game. You're still going to make the playoffs. And really, their season will be defined by Week 8 against Texas A&M, Week 10 against Tennessee, and, of course, Week 15 in the Iron Bowl against Alabama and Max. So I wouldn't worry about it yet. They have the nation's leading rushing attack, the second best total offense, and then the third best scoring offense. So, and third best rushing attack. Of course, that pass defense, gonna probably kind of worry about that a little bit. But overall, if I'm mad, I'm not concerned yet. It'll sting a little bit to lose in 4 overtimes at South Carolina, but I'm pretty confident he'll bounce back from that pretty quick. At number 7 is Baylor. This is one of Skelter's teams. Another upset. They lose to Texas Tech, 31-29. Kind of look at that, what happened there, and essentially Texas Tech jumped out to an early lead, kind of held it going in that third quarter, and then that's going to sting a little bit. Is Baylor got back, and then the 2-point conversion failed, and as a result of it, Baylor kind of dropped out. It looks like the passing game and the rushing attack not being as strong as it normally is really what hurt them. And of course, on the Texas Tech side, the quarterback had a really good game. So that's 2 upsets in the top 10 already. Not really, if I'm Skelto, I'm not worried about this. I think he'll bounce back. Again, his big competition is going to be TCU week 10 and Oklahoma in week 12. It looks like John Libby's hurt. That may be one of the reasons why. Libby's one of the very strong running backs. He's the backup, of course, to Kerry Blunt. Kerry Blunt, not maybe having as good of a season as Skelto would have liked. 479 rushing yards. Skelto's probably going to address that pretty quick. And if you look at it, is 12th best scoring offense, 10th best total offense, 6th best rushing attack. Their defense is doing really well. They have the first in both total defense and in passing defense. So he definitely has them on the right track. I think that's just a speed bump. Skelter's other team is at number 8. That's Louisiana Monroe. They're out of the Sun Belt, so that's a pretty good start for him, and it looks like he beat Gary at Appalachian State, already down to Arkansas State. And traditionally, this is a rushing attack, as you see. They're the 8th best rushing attack, 4th best scoring defense, 8th best passing defense. Sunbelt isn't known for passing attacks, it's known for rushing attacks, so they're going to do pretty well there, but he's got a very solid team. If you look, Aaron Daniels is already rushing for well over 100 yards per game. He's someone to watch throughout the season. I won't be shocked if he's in it near the end of the year for the Doak Walker Award. And traditionally, Louisiana Monroe running backs do very well. Texas State is at number 9. That's my former team. They're probably the highest ranked, probably because I left. At number 10, we have Central Florida at 4-1. They're doing really well. Number 11 is Tulsa. Again, another undefeated team. Gary comes in at number 12 with his Arizona State Sun Devils. That's a really good turnaround so far for Gary. And what you see is they've already beat one top 25 team in Colorado State. Oklahoma State was ranked, I think, when they played them and when they won. And they just downed Oregon State to open up their Pac-12 season. Pretty good scoring offense, number 5. Pretty good total offense. Again, number 5, they're getting it done on the ground. They're the 5th best rushing attack in the SNCFL. And if you look, Hugh Gutierrez is really the person pulling that load. So if we keep going through the top 25, you have Vanderbilt at number 13. Number 14 is Oklahoma at 4-1. Washington State is one of my teams, though at number 15. That must mean that they beat California, and they did. So Washington State, Stanford was ranked at the time they played. California was ranked at the time they played. It's a pretty drastic drop for California, actually. If I remember correctly, they were like number 10 or something, and they dropped all the way out the top 25. I don't know what that says about Washington State, but if you look at it, 4th best scoring offense, 9th best total defense, 9th best rushing attack. They're definitely getting it done on the ground. Albert Sylvester's a freshman, but right now the star for them is Thomas Shin, who is averaging over 100 yards per game. So pretty good start for the Cougars. Probably much better than I thought that they would have done so far. The Arizona Wildcats come in at number 16. Duke is at number 17. Tennessee's at number 18. TCU, one of the powerhouses in the Big 12, is at number 19. Number 20 is Boise State. Number 21 is at Minnesota, the University of Minnesota. It's actually kind of strange that is, I think, them and Maryland are the only, Michigan's in there too, are the only top 25 teams from the Big Ten. Missouri comes in at number 22, Michigan's at number 23, Miami is at number 24, Colorado State is at number 25. So what we'll do is we'll go quickly through the standings in the conference and see how the conference races are going out. So I think early on in the season what I said was the Atlantic coast would come down between Clemson and likely either Miami or Georgia Tech. So Clemson is definitely up there. You have the 5-0 and doing a really good job there. Matt is Louisville's 5-0. Van's 3-2. That's pretty good for NC State. He's got them, looks like, headed in the right direction as well. If you look at the coastal, Miami is up there at number 24, but the leader on the coastal right now is Duke, who's at number 17. Nothing really sticks out in the offensive leaders right now, but so far the top recruit is Virginia Tech has them, and that's Damon Watts out of T.C. Williams High. He's at number 185. He's a 4-star recruit, so. And then the next one is Georgia Tech, got a pretty good running back in Matthew Kirkpatrick. He's also a 4-star. So a couple of 4-star recruits here already for the ACC. So it looks like Virginia Tech has one, UVA has one, and then Georgia Tech has 2, and then Boston College has 1. So next week, big games is Clemson at Boston College. I don't know why there's not a line there. It may be too big of a differential. Louisville will take on NC State. Van will be hoping to get an upset there. Virginia Tech is at Duke. Georgia Tech's at Miami. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out. Clemson will easily beat Boston College. Louisville should, well, actually, I think Louisville will have some problems with NC State. I think Van actually could part of the upset here. So we'll kind of watch that one. That one would be my upset watch for the ACC this week. Virginia Tech, I don't see them getting past Duke. Duke should win that one. Georgia Tech and Miami, it'll be a good game, but I think Miami wins that one. Mostly because I think Miami's still smarting from the loss to ODU a couple of weeks back. So if we go to the American Athletic, of course the top team in the East right now is Central Florida. That's not a complete shock. Cincinnati's not doing as well as I thought they would. Bandit will be happy. Looks like Temple got the first win of the year after 3 straight losses. And of course, bear in mind that's no reflection on Bandit. He literally took them over in week 1. So he's trying to get them turned around. Tulsa, of course, is the leader right now in the West at number 11. I think I had said that Houston would probably be the one there. And then you have Caesar at Memphis, who's 3-2. It looks like he lost his last game. But I think it's still pretty wide open in both divisions, so not quite sure. It's a big week for Central Florida and Temple. So it's Temple at Central Florida. I'm going to go with Central Florida on that. I think that if Bandit had more time with his team, I think he would have probably have a better chance at that. Tulsa versus Cincinnati is a big one. Cincinnati is trying to get back in the race with Central Florida, so they'll be looking to try to upset Tulsa. I don't think that'll happen, though. And then I don't see where Memphis is playing. I think they have a bye. So top recruits out of the American Athletic is you have one who went to Houston out of Texas, and then one that went to Cincinnati out of Ohio. So 3 4-stars. So Houston got 2 of them, and then Cincinnati got 1 of them. In the Big 12, of course, this has changed with the upset of Baylor. Um, so right now, Oklahoma is the leader in the division, is the leader in the Big 12. Texas Christian is right there with them. Oklahoma, of course, is the only one undefeated other than Kansas State. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I still think Baylor is going to come back for them. The loss to Texas Tech, I think that was just one of those weird losses that sometimes happens. So, of course, the news here is a couple 4 stars have already been recruited, 1 5 star. So Texas Christian got 1 5 star, the number 11 recruit, Lacey Workman, who's a defensive tackle out of Bonham High School in Texas. And then TCU has also got 4 stars so far. So TCU's doing a really good job recruiting. Oklahoma State's got 2 4 stars, and Texas Tech has a 4 star as well. So definitely movement in recruiting in the Big 12. Games to watch this week is, of course, Iowa State at Baylor. I'd hate to be Iowa State. I think Baylor's just going to open it up on them after that loss. Oklahoma travels to Kansas State, so this is battle of undefeateds in the Big 12. I think Oklahoma will win that one. I know the computer disagrees with me on that. And then Texas Tech at Texas Christian is another big one. I expect Texas Christian to win that one quite easily. In the Big Ten, of course, the leader right now is Maryland, who's number 2. Michigan is also undefeated in the conference, and they're at number 23. And then there's a whole bunch of other teams that are in the race. Penn State is 1-1. They bounced back from the loss to Maryland pretty nicely. And then if you get over in the West, what you notice is that there isn't, you have Purdue, who's undefeated in the conference, and then you have Minnesota that stands out. So it really still should be Minnesota and Iowa, but we'll keep an eye on that one. Surprisingly for the Big Ten, there's only been one signing. It was a 3 star at Michigan State, so it'll be interesting to see if that starts to change. Big games, of course, Don is at Penn State. He takes on Rutgers at home. I expect he'll win that one. Rick is having a little bit of a struggle with Ohio State, but let's put that in context. He's only lost 1 game, so I expect he'll continue to climb back. I think the pollsters are being a little difficult this year, and we'll see how that pans out. But they host Indiana, 6-point favorites. They should easily cover that. And then Maryland travels to Michigan State. It's not Gary at Michigan State, so I think Maryland's actually going to probably clobber Michigan State on the road. So I won't be shocked by that. Wisconsin takes on Iowa in the Battle of the West. And then you got Minnesota versus Michigan. That's a pretty big game. Both of them are leaders in their respective divisions, and then Purdue goes to Northwestern. That'll probably be a loss for Purdue in their first ones. Moving into Conference USA, Rice and Southern Miss are still undefeated, and they are the leaders. Shocking, Texas San Antonio's is still kind of in the race. I guess that means that they beat Old Dominion. We'll take a look at that in a moment. And then on the east side, of course, Western Kentucky was the team I mentioned to watch. Florida International, if I remember correctly, I think that they beat Old Dominion last week and then followed it up with a loss. The other team here, of course, is Old Dominion. They are on a 2-game losing streak. We'll see how they fix that. So after the Miami upset, they really haven't done much. And then, of course, so is James Madison is 0-5. It's a rebuilding year for them, so just give it a little bit of time. I'm pretty sure so will have them on the right path. Games to watch this week is Western Kentucky at Old Dominion. If Skelton's going to bounce back and start making some moves in that division, he needs to win this one. James Madison is at Middle Tennessee State. I think that Soa has a chance of winning that one. I'll go ahead and say that he does. Rice at Texas San Antonio, so Rice is undefeated. Texas San Antonio has lost one, but I think Texas San Antonio will win this one. They're doing a little bit better than I thought that they would by this point. So those are the kind of games to watch still. And then at the Independence, of course, you got JC at Notre Dame. He's having a pretty good year, 3-1. Of course, they lost their last game. They'll take on. Well, I don't think they have a game this week. They get a bye. So, in the MAC, what you have is Northern Illinois and Toledo kind of running away with it. In the West and the East, you have a pretty wide open matchup. I think Akron is undefeated, and they are. In conference play, they haven't been doing so good out of conference play, but I think the way it's developing, I think Akron will still be the one though at the end of the year. So it'll probably be like Akron in Northern Illinois or Toledo. Moving into the Mountain West. In the Mountain West, I think what you see developing is kind of what we thought it would be. Boise State undefeated, Colorado State with one loss. Those are two teams, honestly, to watch. Kind of a shock hill. Nevada has two commits, one of them being a 5-star defensive end out of Virginia, of all places. And then they got a 4-star quarterback, so Nevada's really killing it on the recruiting trail right now. And then in the West, it's pretty wide open. Hawaii is the only undefeated team in conference play, but most of the teams have one win, one loss, so we'll see how that plays out. Pac-12, this one's a little bit more of a shock. If you look at it, Washington State right now is the only defeated team in the North. They are ranked 15 and doing pretty well. Stanford and Cal will be there at the end of the year, and then JC has lost 2 straight. He lost his opener. Both of those losses have been in Pac-12 play, so hopefully he'll get that turned around and get them in the thick of things for the North Division. In the South Division, USC is undefeated at 2-0, but you have Arizona and Arizona State, both also undefeated with the number 12 and number 16 ranked teams. So those are the 2 ranked teams other than Washington State in the North, who makes it 3. Quite a bit of movement, mostly USC in the Pac-12. So USC's got a 5-star quarterback out of California, and then they went on to sign another 4-star quarterback out of California. But they've also picked up 6 different 4-stars to go with the 5-stars, so 7 in total. And then Stanford has picked up 2 4-stars, and Arizona picked up a 3-star. Games to watch this week: Oregon State versus Washington. I expect Washington to win that. That'll help get them moving in the right direction. Utah isn't having a great year, so I expect Washington State will win that one. This is the big game this week: is Arizona State versus USC. Battle of undefeateds. I'm going to go with Gary. I think Gary will beat USC. And then Oregon and California. Arizona at Stanford's the other game to watch. Stanford needs to win this one if they want to stay in the hunt for the North Division title. Same with California. They need to down Oregon. The SEC, again, had the big upset this week with Auburn, which kind of, I think, throws it open a little bit. But Alabama and Texas A&M are still undefeated in conference play, undefeated overall. Auburn only has 1 loss, but they'll be pretty dangerous still. And then Louisiana State lost the last game, so it'll be interesting to see how Rick bounces back from that. So is at Florida. He's 3-1. That's pretty good. He lost his first game this last week. but he's got them definitely headed in the right direction. Kind of talked earlier, there's only one big recruit that signed so far, and that was at Alabama. Games to watch this week. Number one Alabama versus number four Texas A&M is probably the game of the week. So it'll be interesting to see James versus Max. Mississippi at number six Auburn. Normally that would be a big game, but Mississippi's not been playing well, so expect Matt to bounce back in a big way. Soa versus Rick in Florida versus Louisiana State. I'm going to go with Florida in that one. I think that they're just the better team right now. So, but you got to be careful because Rick is capable of producing an upset. Be interested to see what South Carolina does. Can they take out another ranked team this week in number 22, Missouri? So that's a couple good games still. Looking at the Sun Belt right now, Louisiana Monroe and Texas State are both undefeated overall and undefeated in conference play, as are Georgia State. I want to say that Georgia State is, no, I'm going to get it wrong. I think it's Rick is at Georgia State. And then you have New Mexico State, who's also undefeated. Max is surprisingly 0-1 at Louisiana State. I'm sorry, Louisiana Lafayette. Be interested to see how he gets that moving back in the right direction. And then, of course, the top two, the recruiting has been almost all Louisiana, Lafayette, and Idaho. So games this week, I expect Louisiana Monroe to easily get past Georgia Southern. Appalachian State, Louisiana Lafayette will be a good game. I'm going to go with Louisiana Lafayette with Max. I think that he'll get that and get himself back on track. And then, of course, South Alabama versus Texas State. Texas State is playing well right now, so it'll be interesting to see how that one goes, but I think they'll win that one. If we look at the league leaders right now, in terms of performance, probably battle kill. I think what stands out quickly is from a quarterback perspective, the league leader in yards, of course, is, I had mentioned him earlier, was Ignacio Lott out of Texas A&M. You also have Martin Winters out of Northern Illinois, Matthew Bennell out of Central Florida, Richard Coy out of Minnesota Golden Gophers, which is kind of funny given the irony here is that Richard Coy, when Skeletor was at Minnesota last year, it was a rushing attack. Stephen Bell, quarterback out of Texas State, was a rushing attack last year. So those teams seem to be bouncing back pretty well. From a passing touchdown perspective, I think you see a little bit different story here. As Ignacio Lott again is tied for first out of Texas A&M. Tied at second is David Eddy from Maryland. And then tied for third is Ralph Vogel from Auburn. So Albert Sylvester, the freshman out of Washington State, is also on that list. So that's pretty cool. This one's a little bit harder to parse because of the fact that some of these people have just played in one game. But if you notice, Ignacio Lott is up there with a passing rating of 223.5. That's a very good rating. Our top rusher right now is George Mosley out of Auburn. He's actually tied with Santiago Worthy out of Maryland. Both have 631 yards. But Todd Sanders out of Auburn is the third-rated rusher, and then Aaron Daniels is number 4. Billy Andrade out of Clemson is number 5. And then Thomas Shin is at number 7. Kerry Blunt is at number 9. And then Mark Davis is at number 10 out of Florida. So definitely some names showing up pretty constantly. From a rushing touchdown perspective, Littleton out of Jamison Littleton out of Colorado State is still the top rushing touchdown performer, and then Thomas Shin is up there as well, as is Daniel Dickinson out of Clemson. Receiving yards, Jason Taylor from Texas A&M is at number 2, but the leader right now is Gilbert Desmond out of Central Florida. He's got almost 100 yards on Taylor. And that's kind of what you would expect. Central Florida has one of the best passing attacks. Michael Conover from Army is ranked 3rd. Davis Milliken from Florida Atlantic is ranked 4th. And Arthur Baumgartner from Georgia is ranked 5th. Receiving touchdowns, John Kiesel out of Auburn, that's kind of a shock, is the leading receiver with touchdowns. Also on this list is Ben Early out of Arizona State and Kevin Golden out of Old Dominion. So that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, given that Auburn's mostly a rushing team. Of course, Auburn also has the leading scorer, Jack Melton, his kicker out of Auburn. Malcolm Schroeder is number 2 out of Colorado State, followed closely by Dwayne Bailey out of Maryland and James Passmore out of Central Florida. When we look at tackles, the leading tackler is Steven Staley out of San Diego State. The top human-controlled one is Travis Shepard out of Georgia State. Sack-wise, you have both John House and Arthur Tarvar. John House out of Eastern Michigan, Tarvar out of California are the top 2. Georgia State's Michael Bruce again is one of the top ones, along with Gen Gill and Donald Kopp from the human-controlled teams. And then interception-wise is your leader is Ronnie Height out of Utah. So I think he was actually one of the people we may have talked about as being up there, so that one's not too much of a shock. So those are kind of your league leaders right now. It's way too early to kind of tell who will be the award winners, but I'll take a look at that right now. Right now, the computer is kind of saying it's going to be our quarterbacks for the Heisman. So Ignacio Lott, Matthew Beno out of Central Florida, and Richard Coy out of Minnesota. From a defensive, from a defensive player of the year, it'll be John House out of Eastern Michigan, John Madden out of Mizzou, and Dallas Dominguez out of Louisville. And then if you look at it, most outstanding offensive player is the same as the Heisman. Pretty much the same as most outstanding quarterback. From senior perspective, it'll be Jesus Metz from Tulsa, Jamel Bucknell from Troy, Michael Smith out of UTEP. I think Smith is actually the better of them, but it's my opinion. The running backs vying for the Doak Walker would be Jim Bradford out of Texas A&M, Clarence Sneed out of UTEP, John Diaz out of Western Kentucky. Right now, from a Biletnikoff perspective, right now it's really Gilbert Desmond, but John Kiesel could sneak in now because of his touchdowns. For John Mackey Award, right now it looks like a toss-up between Ahmed Escobedo out of Texas A&M, Joshua Hayes out of Florida State, and David Warr out of Washington State. From the Lombardi Award, right now I think it's Jack Bennett from San Jose State, but I don't know if that's William or W.M. Hutchinson from Louisiana Monroe is also up there. And then from a Outland Trophy, I think you have John House is up there, as well as Arthur Tabar, Russell Rashad, and others. The most outstanding linebacker would be Dallas Dominguez out of Louisville, or Alan McKay or Mackey out of Kentucky, Billy Adam out of Ole Miss. And then the Jim Thorpe most outstanding defensive back. If you look at it, I kind of think that the way they're leaning is a little bit too much on the safeties. I don't know that that's going to be the case. I'll have to go back and look in who leads, but I think John Madden out of the safety out of Mizzou is going to probably be the person to watch, though. Kicker wise, this one will be interesting, but you have Jordan Bailey out of Maryland, John Barrows out of Iowa, and then Miguel Leary out of Ole Miss. I think Dwayne Bailey should deserve to be up there, but I think there are other ones that should be up there before the other two. Punting wise, of course, Bradley Glenn out of Old Dominion, Kelvin Guidry out of Kansas, and then William Allen out of James Madison are your potential candidates still. So I think one of the things, and kind of look at last week real quick. So last week, the big games, of course, you had Boston College, who summarily upset Notre Dame, and that was JC's team. So it looks like they got done with a fairly balanced attack. I won't be shocked if we see that there was some turnovers, though, and there weren't. But it was just a good game overall from Boston College, who had 446 yards of offense versus 224 from Notre Dame. And then you got the Temple game. Well, Temple upset Army. Temple got it done on the ground, it looks like. So I think that that's a good solid win for Bandit. He'll be happy with that. His quarterback had a okay game, but definitely has to be happy with his rushing attack, because that looks like it's almost 300 yards on the ground. And it's a little annoying. Other big games is North Carolina State easily dispatched Wake Forest. That's a rivalry game for those two. Of course, Wake is in Winston-Salem, and NC State's in Raleigh. They're not far away from each other. But if you look at it, is NC State jumped up 41 to nothing, and then just cruised to 48 to 10 win. They definitely got it done on the through the passing attack. Fans got to be happy with that. I know he's had some issues with his playbook, so I kind of made sure his playbook stuck this week, and he's got a pretty good playbook apparently, because he just put away Wake Forest. Clemson again downed Miami. This one's not as big. When Rouse was at Miami, it was a big rivalry between him and Matt. I think he probably lost it more times than he won it, but Clemson getting it done through the air with Big Day from the quarterback, Esteban Johnson, who only missed 5 passes out of 25, 297 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's a really solid game from him. And then kind of a little bit of a heartbreaker for Cecil. Memphis Falls, 292 yards out of Memphis's quarterback. That's a good game, 2 touchdowns. But on the opposite side, you had Central Florida. Will Benno threw for 413 yards and 3 touchdowns. So he definitely had the stronger of the 2 games. This is one I mentioned earlier where Baylor was upset. Essentially, they trailed for most of the game and then tried to make a game out of it. And then in the final 3 minutes, they got it close and missed the 2-point conversion. And let's just see here. Did they even get the ball back? No, they did not. So essentially, that miss of the 2-point conversion, Texas Tech just took the ball and ran out the clock. So that one will sting a little bit. From a Penn State perspective, they easily down Northwestern. Given the amount of freshmen playing right now with with Penn State. That's a pretty big, solid win for Don. And if you look at it, his quarterbacks had a pretty good game. 2 touchdowns, almost 200 yards passing. Um, Maryland versus Illinois. If you look at this one wasn't really close. Maryland held them. Maryland didn't have as big of a game offensively as they normally have, but Worthy ran for 150 yards and a touchdown. Um, so I think the game was closer than the score actually showed. Um, and then Michigan State, Ohio State. Ohio State won this one over Michigan State. Had to win it in overtime though, but a win's a win. So got it done behind the quarterback Billy Bills, um, and that's a good win for Rick. And then this was the game with Skeletor and me. Both of us having a thing, a little shocked by that result, to be honest with you. Um, Texas State got it done on the ground. That may have been the difference. Maybe Skeletor was expecting me to throw the ball, but not a good game. Not a great game out of Torres. But Kirk got 2 touchdowns, and then of course Stahl had 407 yards, and then really abysmal game from Lawson at Old Dominion. Not sure if he was getting sacked a lot or what. Yeah, he got sacked a few times. Um, so he was probably rushing, but good solid win for the Roadrunners. Uh, they definitely needed that. And then Soa lost to Marshall. Um, again, one of those will not a good day from a completion percentage, but a solid day from a passing yards and a touchdown perspective. It's just that Marshall was able to run the ball consistently to win that one. JC lost 34-17 to Utah. Again, not a good passing attack. Gave up 4 interceptions. That's one that's going to sting. And that probably largely made the difference in the loss. So he'll look to get that back on. And then Washington State versus California. It looks like Washington State got it done on the ground, and then really drove a lot of incompletions, which probably helped them. Shin and Tellez and Boyce all had big games. That's like the second game in a row for them. So, of course, Shin and Tellez over 100 yards each and 2 touchdowns. So definitely did a good job. And then Sylvester threw for 4 touchdowns. So Washington State's got to be happy with that. Gary against Oregon State, it was pretty much a blowout. Got a big game out of his quarterback, Sanders, who completes 70%, 293 yards, 4 touchdowns. And then, of course, they held the Beavers to just 331 yards. And then if we look at this, Arkansas upset Louisiana State. So Rick is trying to get the LSU Tigers on the path I think he wants them. This one largely looks like it was the defense for Arkansas did a really good job in shutting down LSU. And they actually scored more points on defense than LSU scored on offense. Texas A&M is a team to watch. They're doing really good this year, 64-48 win over Georgia. Pretty wild game it looks like actually up until the end. So 473 yards, 5 touchdowns from Georgia, and then Lott threw for 395 yards and 2 touchdowns. So you have to keep an eye on Texas A&M. They're really putting up the numbers. Alabama versus Mississippi State again. Alabama had a pretty solid game. I have noticed in this version of Draft Day Sports is the completion percentage is way down on some teams versus what you've seen in the past. Same with the rushing attack. but I think this is more realistic. Um, Max got it done on the ground, and that's how he was able to put away Mississippi State, as well as doing a pretty good job with just slowing them down on defense. This, of course, was the upset I alluded to earlier, where 9 touchdowns for Mulkey. That's a huge, huge win for South Carolina. Louisiana Monroe got it done on the ground against Appalachian State. Uh, Daniels and Dick did really good, both over 140 yards and 3 touchdowns between the two of them. So that keeps Louisiana Monroe in the race. And then Georgia State for South Alabama. I think this was Rick's first game with Georgia State, if I remember correctly. So it was. So 234 yards passing. They managed to come back in the fourth and score most of the points to be able to get by South Alabama and keep themselves in the race. So I think that's it for now. The next time that we do the podcast, we should be in week 8. And if you're interested in joining this league, it's a good league. Just take a look at SNCFL.us. And if you have an interest, either let us know here or at Simnation.us. We'd love to have you. Also, if you like this, make sure to do a follow. Just so that way I have a good record of who is watching this, and I can kind of talk you through it. We will be doing a couple of videos focused specifically on the game in the coming weeks, and talking about how to build the right offense, how to build the right defense, and then talking a little bit more about the game itself. I will say that I like this version as opposed to past versions. It's more realistic. In past versions, you had teams that were averaging over 500-600 yards of rushing. You're not having the same thing right here and right now, but I think that the game is pretty balanced, and that's pretty good. In the past, I don't think we would have seen some of the upsets we saw this week. It'll be interesting to see how the rest of the season plays out. If I'm in Maryland, if I'm at Clemson, if I'm in Alabama, I'm not going to take any games for granted after watching both Baylor and Auburn get upset this week. It'll also be interesting to see how injuries play out. We'll kind of end just real quick with me taking a quick look at the news. And then we will pick up the podcast again next week. But if you look at this, again, 17 players committed. The biggest one, I mentioned this earlier, was the defensive end, Clark Morrow, out of Virginia, who committed to the Nevada Wolfpack. Pac-12 had the most with 6. USC got 4 to sign this last week. Of course, the top uncommitted recruit is Dean Shell out of, he's a defensive tackle. He's ranked number 1. Prestige changes. So the upset by Purdue gives them prestige points. New Mexico held close to Nevada, so that'll give them some. And then, of course, Wake Forest lost prestige points because they got trampled by North Carolina State. Nebraska was upset by Purdue. And that's pretty harsh, actually, to take points away from Nevada just because New Mexico hung close. But Purdue increased a whole point. And then, of course, your player of the week was Alfonso Mulkey out of South Carolina. That makes sense. He threw for 9 touchdowns. And Ronnie Height out of Utah, he had 8 tackles, 3 interceptions, and scored a touchdown. And then we had a couple of major injuries. Quarterback Quentin Snead out of Georgia State will be out for the next 12 to 16 weeks. Jeffrey Presley out of Rutgers will be out for 8 to 12. And Donovan O'Reilly out of Oklahoma State will be out for 12 to 16. So it'll be interesting to see. I still think the season is going to play itself out, that what you're probably going to see likely is Maryland, Alabama, Auburn, Clemson, Baylor, Louisiana Monroe, Texas A&M are going to be 7 of the 8 seeds. I don't know who the eighth will be. It'll be interesting to see. It could be Texas State, which would be a shocker. But I think the teams to watch right now that are kind of overachieving, that aren't where I expected them to be, are Arizona State. Gary's doing a really good job with them since taking over Washington State, which is one of my teams who's definitely overachieving right now. And then I think you'll want to keep an eye on, you'll probably want to keep an eye on some of the teams like Central Florida. I know that they're expected to be there, but they're actually doing pretty well. And then I gotta think that there's gonna be another school. I think Oklahoma could sneak in, but I don't think that they will. But it'll be interesting to see what happens in the ACC because right now Louisville is doing much better than I expected out of them, and they're going to challenge Clemson. I don't think in the end they're going to get past Matt. Matt's a pretty solid coach, and has done well with Clemson in the past. So that's it for now. Again, if you like this and you want to see more of these, definitely do a favorite. This is also posted on YouTube on a weekly basis, so it's under the same name. So, and if you want me to cover anything specific or you want to have any special guests like one of the coaches or other things, or me talk about the way the game plays out or whatever, definitely let me know. But again, thank you to Wolverine Studios for this title. It's actually a really strong game. I'm enjoying it. This has probably been the most challenging season I think I've had in a while. And also, if you want, take a look at WWPF. So it's Whiskey Papa Foxtrot dot Uniform Sierra. For the Pro League, that one's a pretty wide open race right now, and they still have a couple teams open now as well. So you can sign up at wwpf.us or simnation.us, or just drop me a note here, and I will get you in touch with the coaches over there. So once again, thank you, and have a great night.